What do you think ayahuasca is?
Well, that's interesting. Even now, like, so I've been working with it 18 years, as you know, and it's a really difficult question to answer still relative to what it does and how it works. But generally, it's the basic description is that it's a psychoactive tea, which is what it is, because it's two plants combined that only work in synergy together, which is really interesting. And it consistently, the mystery of it is that it consistently causes what we call spiritual experiences or really deep introspective, I don't know what you call it, like psychological exploration. Like you can really get into the psyche with ayahuasca that you, in a way that you can't with any other entheogen or even substance that I'm aware of.
What ways have you seen ayahuasca heal people or even heal yourself?
Such a big question. We could spend all day just talking about that. But the short answer is very similar to what you're talking about. It is very fascinating that, and maybe it's also because of the ceremony, because we know it has the ability to do this, we've probably tailored the ayahuasca ceremonies to some degree so that they can actually, it'll be a catalyst for these experiences. But the most common experience and the thing I've most seen healed in ayahuasca ceremonies are depression, and any kind of trauma related, either illness or, well, mental or physical illness related to trauma. And it does it mainly by doing exactly what you just brought up. Somehow it very safely brings people back to the original trauma or back to the origin of whatever the dis-ease is. And you're actually able to move into that space in a safe way and process it. I've had people just recently, actually, a friend shared with me that at an ayahuasca experience she was at, that she went because she was on her last leg, with depression. It got to the point where she was barely able to function and she was on all the drugs and various dosages of those drugs. And she finally thought, okay, I'll try this ayahuasca thing. And it's now been 6 months, and she's been completely off all medications and back in the swing of life. And for her, she says, I'm healed. Yeah, so she's a complete, I don't know, cheerleader now for ayahuasca as a healing modality.
It really is
Mm,
fascinating. I think so many antidepressants, the prescription ones, they're
mm,
kind of putting like a band-aid on the bullet
yeah,
wound. They
yeah,
don't actually get in and address the trauma. It's just fixing the symptoms.
precise. When I got introduced to ayahuasca 18 years ago through the Santo Daime Church, which is again the ayahuasca church that started in Brazil, and Fred invited me to participate in one of those ceremonies. And my first thought, I remember like the weeks following the ceremony, it was really powerful. But I thought, well, this is really awesome, but I don't want to keep doing this because I'm concerned about my psychological, you know, and mental well-being. And a lot of people have that concern, But shortly thereafter, I read a study that they had done in Brazil, which was part of its legalization process there. And they researched people that had been drinking like regularly, like twice a month for like almost over a 30-year period. And not only were they completely healthy, they were healthier and smarter. They tested higher cognitively over this period of time. So at that point, I thought, well, that's it, because I'm really interested in this medicine and I'm going to study it. And for me, it's like, yeah, 18 years later, I am definitely a smarter person in terms of being more conscious and the ability to be centered in one's own being, I would call it, and to assimilate information um, has definitely improved, in my life. And I've watched so many people go through this amazing curve, of coming in wounded in various ways, either like physically or traumatically, psychologically. And within like a year of on and off again, going to South America, wherever they're finding access to the medicine, it's profound, the transformation. Yeah, so at some point I thought, that's it. I'm going to dedicate myself to at least being an advocate. You know, yeah. And having said that, I want to make that clear. Like, I am positively not an advocate for quote unquote drug use. You know, and don't advocate that anybody does anything illegal. At the same time, I realize how ridiculous is it that we have these amazing substances that are actually safe and proven effective, yet we're all cheerleading, alcohol and poisonous pharmaceuticals that are relatively ineffective. Ayahuasca works as a purgatory, meaning it causes you to purge. The most dramatic form is, actually like vomiting, or like in either end. But people also purge emotionally. There's sweating in ceremonies, crying, laughter. Some people start laughing and can't stop, But then later, when they explain what they're experiencing, that was their purge. It was a cathartic experience of this uncontrollable laughter. Maybe that's been suppressed for years. Who knows? But it's definitely working, at least initially, by allowing you to purge whatever it is that is the source of the dis-ease. And I say that really carefully because people are being healed by physical ailments as well. But through my years of working with the medicine, all of that always ends up being connected to going to the source, as you brought up earlier, of whatever is the impetus or the cause of the disease. Yeah.
And some shamans call it getting well. And
Oh
so,
yeah, when
we
you
would call it
purge, you
getting
get
sick.
well. Yeah. Yeah, mainly because you're so nauseous and just uncomfortable by the time that happens. You're so grateful when the purge finally happens, in whatever form it happens. It's like, oh my gosh, thank God, you know. And then suddenly, though, for most people, the purge is kind of the apex of the experience in a sense, because everything's been building up to that, and then finally you purge out this thing, and then you're just with the medicine and the ceremony in such a beautiful way because you're no longer processing or fighting this discomfort, basically. Yeah. So that's why it's called getting well. You suddenly feel like, oh my gosh, yeah, you feel fantastic.